What are you doing?
What have you done, foolish girl?
All things said remain. Forgive me. I was not.
Hi everyone. As PoE2 new league just got announced, I thought I'd share my last character of the league in PoE1 Keepers, which is the Single Impale Woespike Unarmed Crushing Fist Champion. I'd like to give a special thanks to Nito for many ideas and insights, including the guaranteed crit with Marylene's and fitting in Vengeful Cry for Rage Regeneration. So to preface and give a warning, this build is completely a bossing build and has extremely poor mapping speed. In return, we have over 1 billion bossing DPS, which means against any boss without a phase transition, we can insta-kill them, even at 2 or 3 player HP. As already shown at the start of the video, the build centers around Woespike Ring introduced this league. I believe people have already started to find out how stupidly strong it is against bosses with the right setup. Even with a relatively moderate investment, you can push this build way over 500 million DPS. So for new players who might not know what Impale is, an Impale stores a % of physical damage you deal to enemies. And for a number of subsequent hits, the stored damage will reoccur on the enemy being impaled. For instance, if you have Impale effects of 10% that last 5 hits, your impaling hit will impale an enemy. Then the next 5 hits will each deal 10% of that hit damage again. If those 5 hits also impale, you will also have your own impale stacks. So basically the number of impales and the damage the impale does depend on the number of hits and the impale lasts for. However, with the Woespike Ring, every time you hit an enemy with a melee hit, it makes it so the strongest impale on that enemy gets an additional hit, meaning it will last for its entire duration rather than using up its hit. Normally, if you're just a normal melee fist build, wearing 2 rings, capping at 100%, will basically mean you will have an additional impale on the enemy. Maybe a little bit stronger since it's extending the strongest impale. But if we were to do a single big hit like a slam, then hit the enemy rapidly with another fast hitting melee attack like Cyclone, suddenly it's as if you are performing that single big hit many times a second. We can scale the damage further from things like impale effects on the tree here, and impale effects from Graft. So with this current setup, we are looking at Impale doing 30% store damage per hit. Now since we are doing Impale, I thought we can utilize the Champion Ascendancy with its added fist per impale on enemy. Since we already essentially have what's equal to +1 impale from our rings, and we get another +1 from the Champion Ascendancy, and then another +2 from Pride Watcher's Eye, we have impale lasting at least 9 hits. Then we also have the Impale Mastery, which makes it so every hit we have 10% chance of adding an additional hit to all impales on that enemy, which will let us exceed our normal stack limit of impales on that enemy. So this gives us a huge boost to this Champion Ascendancy added fist. And the best thing to pair this added fist is actually an unarmed Facebreaker build. So we are using Facebreaker with the Rune Grad of 20% increased effect of gloves. We are basically multiplying our added damage from our Champion Ascendancy by almost 13 times when unarmed. We are also using Crushing Fist as our main impale hit, since it has one of the highest damage effectiveness in the game right now. And in order to trigger the use condition without needing to block, we're also using the new shield, Better Instinct. This makes it so that damaging retaliations become usable every 4 seconds. And since we have the luxury to slam the ground before boss fight, we can actually prep before any boss even becomes active by slamming the ground 3 times and using the retaliation notable here, which makes it so our 4th retaliation always crits. This makes it so that we don't need to invest in any critical chance, which is normally difficult to do with unarmed builds anyways, and also lets us use Marylene's Fallacy for massive crit damage. To boost our damage further, we can use Vengeful Cry, which allows us to get rage past our normal maximum. Normally, using Vengeful Cry requires us to take a savage hit. And the way we do that is by drinking a Doedre's Elixir. This has multiple functions. So not only does it provide us with a savage hit to trigger the use condition for Vengeful Cry, it also gives us up to our max frenzy charges and endurance charges for offensive and defensive effects. We are also using the champion adrenaline ascendancy. If we have a precisely controlled KR resistance of, let's say, negative 25%, this will cause the damage we take from the Doedre's Elixir to deal 62.5% of our life as damage. And with 45, that drops down to 46.25%. This makes it so that this brings our life to 53.75%, which is normally not low life, since low life is below 50%. But we could use the life mastery that counts life below 55% as low life, which triggers our champion adrenaline, and it also immediately heals us by 25%, up to 78.75% life. So this potion itself is granting us overcap rage, max frenzy and endurance charges, and adrenaline. The rest of the gear is fairly straightforward, with stats to cap our elemental res, and since we are using so many uniques, we can use Utala's Hunger for some good flat life. On our weapon swap, we use after our Crushing Fist Slam, we are using 2 Foulborn Moonbender's Wing, introduced this league. This has the fastest attack speed currently in the game. And a very important thing to note here is that if you look at our POB and our gear, you may have noticed that our aura setup and Enlighten looks terrible, in that it doesn't maximize our unreserved mana. Also, on our weapon swap Moonbender's Wing, you can actually see that we are maintaining Flesh and Stone, which matches the exact same location of its copy on our main weapon set shield. However, it has 2 bad supports on it, Concentrated Effect and Second Wind, which massively increases its reservation. This is actually done on purpose, because we are supporting our Cyclone of Tumult with Life Tap, so we don't really care about how much mana we have after a weapon swap. But we do want to limit the amount of mana we have, because we don't want to trigger Lightning Warp on Moonbender's Wing. Not only does it potentially move us to a dangerous position, it will also eat our Impale occurrences without adding another hit to it, since Lightning Warp is not a melee attack. So with the increased reservation from these supports, plus the increased mana cost of Lightning Warp from Conk Effect, we will not have enough mana to trigger Lightning Warp, effectively removing the downside of using this Foulborn weapon. So for bossing, the combo you want to do for every boss is this. First, you want to slam the ground 3 times before every boss even becomes active. Now this will take some time since we can only use a slam once every 4 seconds. But once you slam the ground 3 times, that will make the next slam a guaranteed crit. Now, after activating the boss, you drink the Doedre's Elixir to trigger the savage hit as well as giving us charges and adrenaline. And once the boss becomes active, you use Vengeful Cry for the power from the boss to get rage regeneration. Now we cyclone the boss to stack up our impales on the boss, and drink Bottled Faith and Lion's Roar, and use Crushing Fist Slam. Next, since the boss now has a single large impale on it, we weapon swap and start cycloning. Although it may look like a lot, with enough practice you can do all these within 3 seconds of boss spawn. Again, this build is terrible at mapping, and I would recommend leveling as another character if you can before switching to the bossing setup. But if you do for some reason want to clear maps with this character, you can either use the Cyclone itself or prepare another Utala's Hunger with different socket colors, or just all white and switch out the gems, and use normal Cyclone. Most monsters will still die if they have Impale on them a few times, just because of the Champion Ascendancy and Facebreaker. It's just not a very fast clearer. But I'm sure it is very fun to see all the Uber Mosses get shredded. So yeah, that's basically the build. Thank you.
One of my captors refused redemption. He did not see value in a new life. Now, new life surrounds him.
My spirit is spent.
Hail, travel.
Remember?
This is the key to a crucible that stretches the sanity of the mind.
Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
The appointed time is here. Victory will be ours.
Incineration.
The others arrived to challenge me for this realm.